got a swagger on the level 10. Everybody hating, where do I even begin? If your swag ain't up to par, then why should we pretend? So all you swagging amateurs, we do not let them in.
Buster, can you please play that phone?
You still hear me?
Yeah.
You know, the reason that is, man, like, I knew what it was like coming in the business. Like, I started training when I was 15 years old in 1998. So it's just one of those things where, you know, man, like, no matter what, I always was appreciative of people and their time and, like, anybody who just wanted to interview me and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, man, like, like, you guys help us, you know. Obviously we risk our bodies, our necks, our bones, you know, for the entertainment for everyone, but ultimately, like, it's reciprocated when people either buy our merch or, you know, do interviews with us. You know, like, I'm not one of those guys. Some people I get, you know, their perspective is everyone has a perspective, but you know, like, I always felt like the same people you see on the way up are the same people you meet on the way down. So you gotta, you know, always be cool with everybody as much as you can. Some people, unfortunately, can't be helped.
And there's some assholes out there. We're not naming any names, but Jim Cornette.
I know, here's the thing, like, I know who the people that I don't like or don't get along with in the industry, and so I know if anything were to happen, I know exactly who they would be, and I would know exactly how to trace them down. So, like, I've been around long enough to know and see who, you know, if I had any enemies, you know, who they are.
Yeah, of course.
Get my Starbucks.
Alright, so, are you ready to start?
Yeah, man, ready to go.
Alright, so, we've already been recording for a little bit. I didn't realize, how far we're about to get into, but, what got you into wrestling?
So my uncle was a referee, for, like, a lower tier outlaw company called Arena Port. No, actually, they were called something else, but I grew into knowing that they were Arena Puerto Rico by this guy, Pedro Rodriguez. So my uncle was an official. I started watching wrestling when I was like 4 or 5, you know what I mean? The first live show I ever watched was, or the main event that I remember, was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Randy Savage inside of a steel cage at MSG. And I do remember that my uncle almost got us, like, our asses kicked because he had one of those blowhorns.
Yeah.
And then for what happened was he would blow the damn horn, and then next thing you know, the dudes in the front weren't too, like, you know, happy about that. They turn around and tell him to shut the horn down. Words are exchanged, you know, and then I think there was going to be a bonus match at MSG, but luckily, you know, cooler heads prevailed. But my uncle ended up being an official for this kind of, like, small indie company in New York, and then he ended up legitimately getting, like, a Heineken bottle broken over his head.
Ooh.
And I guess the guy, the wrestler, like, legitimately didn't like my uncle and broke a Heineken bottle over his head, and that was it for him as far as his career. But then, like, I met the promoter through him, and then, you know, I was only 15 years old, and I tried out for the wrestling team. I didn't make it, but I always wanted to be a wrestler. And then at that point on, I started training in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
That's an interesting story.
Thank you.
It's most people have that family connection to get into wrestling. Like, my uncle was a wrestler for like 3 months, and that's what got me where I'm at. The whole one match I've had where I lost in 20 seconds.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's the thing that beauty of professional wrestling, man. And I think now more than ever, it's like music, you know what I mean? Like, it brings people together, you know? And I think there's nothing more powerful than that, man. Like, it's like pro wrestling is such a big thing when it comes to bringing people of all races, nations, backgrounds, religions, all that, you know? It brings people together, and I think I've met some of the best people, you know, that I've ever met. You know, people talk about a lot of toxicity in wrestling. So, man, I came in 1998, so I can tell you that things were far worse than they were. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but, like, we all had that experience that said, you know, man, it's like, oh, I love to do this, man, like, as, you know, professionally, I love to, you know, travel the world doing this, you know, and I've been grateful enough to have wrestled for many great companies, and I've wrestled in 2 countries, and it's been great. You know, there's more to go. There's so much more to do.
We mentioned some of the companies you work for. I've seen you. What got me noticed on you was a company called GTS Wrestling.
Yeah, Grim.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Mr. Grim.
Oh, who's now Grim in AEW.
Oh, okay. I guess they renamed him. They rebranded him.
Yeah, they just took the Mister out, and he was just Grim. Which was
You gotta like that.
yeah, I was first thing I did after his match was I went and saw what Grim's tweet was, and the weirdest way he phrased it was, "That's my brother, LOL." Now they both have the same name.
Well, it's so funny because a lot of times I know Grim, Mr. Grim. I know Grim,
yes.
I guess, you know, and you know, it's just one of those things where it happens, you know, like it's such a vast, I guess, business or industry that, you know, you're gonna run into people who have similar sounding names or similar names altogether, but you know, I'm glad it didn't deter either one of them from just pursuing the thing, you know, like. You know, Grim does his thing with GTS, and Mr. Grim is a really good buddy of mine. Is doing his thing, you know, at All Elite.
The one criticism GTS gets is if a match is good, nothing gets said, but if a match is bad, he gets hated on, which I wholeheartedly disagree with, because I've seen people like you or the Metal End's Monster Bruno or Mr. Grim put on very entertaining matches when some of his guys can't even really do an elbow drop. It's not his fault, it's the wrestler's fault.
I think if you take, you know, like, there's just different, it's like movies, right? There's different genres of movies. There's horror movies, there's like
comedies,
like comedy movies, stuff like that. Like, I think if you kind of break it down in that kind of idea, then that's what GTS falls under. You know, it should fall under like more of a comedy style wrestling, you know. Like, there's just different, like, you can't compare that to like a Ring of Honor or a Evolve or Beyond Wrestling. Like, just everyone has their tiers of talent, and everyone has their tiers of like type of wrestlers, you know what I mean? Like GCW is like a horror movie, like they do a lot of the death match stuff. They have some excellent wrestling too, but like, you know, like they're very, like, their hardcore deathmatch stuff does very well. So I think GTS, you know, if you go in there expecting like, you know, Brock Austin or Malenko and Eddie Guerrero, then you know, you're probably not. That's probably not going to be your flavor of ice cream. But you know, you have to kind of go into these shows like kind of knowing, okay, well, this is what this is. You know, these are like younger guys that probably don't have as much training to do this. I do believe everyone should get trained and should be training like regularly when they're in the ring, because it's dangerous. I don't, like, people can break anything they want. They can say anything about pro wrestling as an entity, but you can't deny the amount of risk that's you know, that's in it when you wrestle, as a wrestler, as a performer, whatever you want to, you know, distinguish it as. Like, you cannot deny the level of risk that's involved with what we do. I, for one, like I said, when I started training, it was a privilege to get in the ring. I didn't get in the ring until at least 2 years in, and that was breaking down rings, setting up rings, you know, training, you know, like for hours on end, you know, like it wasn't as easy now, one, to get into a training facility of school, but also it wasn't as easy to like just get on a show either, you know, like there weren't as many. Now there's a lot of shows overall, so it's just, it was a different era, but ultimately, like, people still train, and if they didn't, they were you know, they were forced to either learn the hard way, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of where I went into it, because my local indie promotion, I've known a bunch of people who've been there. A couple of them worked with my uncle, and so I immediately go in and I start cutting promos on anyone I can, and that caught the attention of the promoter, which is always something fun. But we go in, and just how much came naturally to me he threw me on as a enhancement talent. Now, I know pro wrestling gets a lot of flack for being, quote, fake. That shit doesn't feel good.
Right.
It's not like I was facing someone like Hornswoggle. I was facing a big buff dude.
Right.
Like, look at Brian Cage, probably about on that level. He was big. And so I can't remember any of their names. That day was kind of a blur. But I was running my mouth, just trying to think of the stupidest things I could say until his music hit. It hit, and I'm like, okay, this is where I die. We're going in, and, I will admit that match was not good because I landed on my ass for most of the stuff. Until, I think he gave me, like, a jackhammer or something. And it hurt like hell.
Yeah.
Because that dude's tall, too. Like, he's a little bit above average height, and falling from that high up onto wood with barely any padding it's not easy. It doesn't feel good. But,
Yep, and that's why we train.
yes, and I started right before the pandemic happened, so I was going to training for like a day or two, and they're like, all right, we're done. You're kidding me, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like this has increased the podcasting with everyone too, because we have nothing else to do. We can't go to wrestling shows. We can just sit here and talk.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's only a matter of time, hopefully, and listen, I think ultimately everyone has to take the responsible route and look at it from a health perspective, like, just be smart about it. I'm sure it's going to be certain rules and regulations put in place to make sure that things are being done, accordingly, and I think as long as people follow those, those regulations, and I think it should be good.
I can't look at my notes because I did not think to put them on my laptop. But one of them I remember was you have any heat with any wrestlers?
Do I have heat with who?
Anybody? Is there anyone you just don't like or just doesn't like you?
So here's the thing. When I came up in the industry, like, I was taught that if you did have heat with anybody, you always resolved it in private. It was like, back in the day, it was just like, it's all done in the backstage behind the closed door. If you had to throw down, you threw down. If you had to get in the ring and fight, then it was what it was, like. But, as far as I know, any heat that I've had with anybody, like, they know, like, I make it very obvious. If the person, like, I'm always going to be respectful. I'm always going to be a professional. Like, I cannot state that enough because it's important to keep yourself. It's just, like, ultimately, that's just what we are. We're professionals. We're trained to be professionals. You act a certain way. You behave a certain way. I don't believe, like, any heat that I have with anybody, that's with them. You know what I mean? Like, if I have heat with people, it's probably not relevant enough to even discuss their names. Yeah. And if I do have heat with you, then I've already brought it to your attention.
I bring that up because
and it's not, and like literally like maybe a handful of people, and they know who they are.
Okay. I bring that up because the promoter I have in my area, he was talking to me. So if I ever get to a point where I can do, real matches, he said I need to find someone I absolutely don't like in that company, and that's my first feud. Because it makes it more interesting if you actually hate the guy who you're fighting and still make them look good.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with that. I think the problem nowadays is that, people misinterpret what is legitimate. There's it's very hard to be in that gray area without either people responding in a way where it's going to get you in hot water, in that people be like, oh, well, this guy is saying this and this might be construed a certain way, and then I think people try to be too involved, not let the escape of what this industry is. To be honest, I think the MMA guys get it better than the pro wrestlers nowadays, in the sense that, if somebody, I remember I was going back and forth with Memphis Mofo, and Bo Crockett in Capital Wrestling like 2 or 3 years back, and it was good stuff. Like I didn't care. Like a lot of stuff, like people could construe it as certain way, but I didn't care, because I knew that like this is what people like. It's trash talk. It's what it is, man. It's like anything else. Like listen. I understand there's barriers, and I understand there's certain things that you shouldn't really say, like that could be offensive to people. Anything like that's homophobic, sexist, transphobic. Anything that's racial, racism. Like, I think, we all have to be intelligent enough nowadays to be able to rip somebody apart and be intelligent enough to convey how we dislike somebody without getting involved like that. Because that day and age of saying shit like that, it's not relevant, and it hasn't been like that for a long time. So I think I don't disagree with the idea of building up a match with people you don't like. Listen, I'll tell you right now, there's plenty of people that I've done business with that I don't like. I don't, like I don't sit on the internet blasting it because, to be honest, like I don't have the time nor the care to. But there's plenty of people that I'm sure don't like me, and that's cool. Like we don't have to be friends. But at the end of the day, like it's still business. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times it could go that way. I think at this point, leaving people thinking, wait, is that legitimate? What's going on? Like getting people to question what's happening and getting emotions out of them. That's what we do now. You know what I mean? Like that's the art of what professional wrestling is getting emotion out of people.
Getting a reaction out of people is even better, but right now we can't get a reaction out of anybody because we can't leave our homes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, people are getting reactions on the internet. I don't know how good of an idea that is. I think it's very. I think the problem too when you put stuff out there in a text situation or convey stuff in character, I think people have to be careful with that because, it's. Especially when you put something in a like text situation, and you word it in a certain way where people are not going to respond well, and you have to be sensitive to that. You got to be sensitive to the situations that we're in. You know what I mean? Like I think ultimately I don't disagree with the idea of talking trash about your opponent because it's done all over. It's done in the NBA. It's done in MMA. It's done in boxing. Like. I don't want you to like me, and I don't like you, So it's like, I think ultimately, depending on where you're going with it, you have to be open to being able to be insulted and they're back when the time calls for it.
All right. So, is there any wrestling promotion that you just outstood everybody and was your favorite of all time? That's the worst way I could have worded it, but I couldn't think of any other way. What was your favorite wrestling promotion?
Like I said, even in terms of like any companies that were like I consider the top wrestling companies for me to have worked for. Is that? I guess that's is that the question?
Yeah. What was your favorite company to work for? Don't know why that couldn't come to my mind first, but
Yeah, even I had a hard time. Alex, even I had a hard time wording it. There's been so many, man. I guess I don't know. I like Capital Wrestling, or Catalyst. They were cool. ECWA was great because I always got to hang out with and travel with my boys. Where else? 1CW in Delaware is cool. I always liked them. They're a bunch of good guys, stand-up people there. FWE was good too. I mean, I did more of backstage stuff in promoting and helping produce those shows, but FWE was a great thing back in 2011 to 2015. I learned a lot as a promoter and as a booker and putting shows together and helping stuff happen. All together. That was a good time. A lot of good memories. I don't know. It's hard to tell because every company has their unique, flavor, and they have their unique way of the locker rooms are cool. Like it's every place that I've been to that I've been fortunate enough to work for have been pretty cool. Like I don't think, and any company that I wouldn't put on that list are not in business or don't do business anyway. So again, these are things not even worth mentioning for the most part.
Yeah. You said you wrestled in 2 countries, right?
Yeah, Dominican Republic.
Ooh, I was about to say, was it Canada?
And it was Canada. Yeah, I wrestled for Northland Wrestling in North Bay, Ontario, and then I also wrestled for a company out in Dominican Republic, and I really enjoyed enjoyed both wrestling in Dominican Republic. The fans there are awesome.
Yeah.
They're like just they bring it back to the days of like it's like almost you go back in time. They still had cops and security there with shotguns. For all the heels and the bad guys, and then from there you also had all the the fans in Canada. The fans and the promoters in Canada are the best. I will say this: Northland Wrestling in North Bay, Ontario. Love it there. Love their fans. Highly respectful. The promoter there, Dan, is amazing. Great guy. Great crowds. Some of my favorite moments were there. But yeah, I mean wrestling. And it's not the end, you know what I mean? I had plans to go elsewhere before the COVID-19 hit.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll be able to revisit those plans after this all goes back to some form of normalcy, I guess.
I heard it's not going to be anywhere towards normal until 2021.
No,
It's between January and
highly
summer,
likely it's not going to be the same for a long time.
which sucks because now it's either people are getting really buff or really fat. Unless you just have really good metabolism. You're going to come back and...
I'll be the first one to admit that my physique's taking a beating.
Mine too. I started working out and then just stuff hit the fan and now I don't have anything.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I subscribe to the idea that with gyms, it's important to... I like the gym because it's just the atmosphere, you know what I mean? Like, you can see yourself competing with the biggest guy in the gym or the most cut-up person, and it's a motivator to me, listen, at the end of the day, like, as an athlete, you have to train and eat accordingly. I think during this time frame, I'll be the first one to admit that I've let myself go partially because, I didn't know when this was going to end, and then partially it's like, I was trying to test myself and see how bad a shape. This sounds odd, but I actually spoke to my friend Azro about it because he's in fantastic shape. I said, I'm purposely just going to get in the worst shape possible. So that way when I come back and hit the gym, I'll just look as like ripped and as cut as humanly possible. So we're still in that transitional phase.
I say that because like I can't like working out at home, no matter where I'm at home, I can't do it because I get just unmotivated after like 3 times. So, what I've had to do is go around running, and that's about how I've stayed not fat.
Right. I mean, you got to do whatever it is, man. Whether you watch a certain match, as a wrestler, and you watch and it motivates you, like okay, all right, now I want to go hit the gym, or not necessarily hit the gym now, but like now I got to go do my workout routine. Or you see one of your friends that's really putting through. Like you you have to surround yourself with people who are gonna push you. I've just been lucky enough again that I have great support of like fellow wrestlers that are not only wrestlers but they just happen to be some of my best friends, and that they're constantly pushing me, and they're people I can talk to. Like I don't. I can always go to them for any problems, and they could always come to me, and we motivate each other. We all want to get better. We all want to be the best we can be, and we want to be better than the next guy, or girl. It's that competitive now. So, that's a big thing to have.
What kind of move would you end your matches with? Like, what would your finisher be? This is
Well,
always
I
interesting.
I've had a few. The Brain Buster was one of them. I like using the Brain Buster. I don't use it as often because the few times I remember, like I hold him up and then snap him. I got kneed in the face, and it's just the repercussion of just like the knee going inward, I guess, and then kneeing me in the face and also kneeing the other guy, just because it's so sudden. I hold them up there and then I just bring them right down. That there were times that the impact would mess me up as bad as the other guy. And then I would do the the schoolboy. Yeah, I used to do like a schoolboy super kick combo into a double arm DDT. I always felt like that moveset was very effective, especially against bigger people that just weren't prepared to not only take a kick to the face but also a double arm DDT. There's not a lot of protection there, so I really enjoyed those. I started bringing up the frog splash as an ode to my all-time favorite Eddie Guerrero. I love it. I do have a really good frog splash. I just don't use it often enough. It's just one of those things where I try to use it sporadically to make it seem like special when I do.
You're about to know how old I am just by this quote. My first ever show watching on TV was Eddie Guerrero's memorial. I was 2 years old, like two in like a day or two. Because he died November 13th, 2005. I turned 2 November 12th, 2005.
Wow.
I'm that young.
Wow. Well, and I'm that old.
Yeah.
But I think I remember being in the car. I think I was in the car with Kevin Keenan, who was official. He ended up going to WWE, I think, later on. I know he ended up going to WWE, and then I don't really think he's involved in wrestling nowadays. But him and Teddy Fine, and we were driving down from Pittsburgh, and we got the news that Eddie had passed. It was terrible, man. He was amazing. Still, his stuff will hold up forever, I think.
Yeah. I think the only sad thing about his death is now that everybody wants to do the frog splash. It's not really a finisher anymore. It's become more of a transitional move for most people.
I think when it's done and executed correctly, it can be a finisher.
I love Rob Van Dam.
That's all I'll say about that.
I have not seen you do it, but I love Rob Van Dam's just because when he does it, he can sit there on the mat for like 20 seconds, go and pin him, and still win.
Right.
And you're not thinking the other guy got buried.
It's a finisher right there.
Yeah. But hearing about Eddie's death was because I have a terrible memory, and so I can remember stuff from when I was 2 or 3, but I can't remember what I did this morning. I don't remember doing anything today. But
right.
This makes podcasting more fun. But I remember I was 2, and I was running around being a kid. And my brother, he's like 4 or 5 years older than me. And he walked in, because my dad was a big wrestling fan for a while, and he walked in and told my dad that said Eddie Guerrero died. And I'm like, who's Eddie Guerrero? Looking back on it now, he's probably one of my favorites. And I'm kind of glad that the first show I got to watch was in tribute to him. It just made his memory in my mind a lot better.
Right, no, absolutely, man. I mean, there's not enough that can be said that hasn't already been stated about Eddie Guerrero, true legend.
So when that Chris Benoit Dark Side of the Ring came out, I was done with life for like a couple days. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit there and think about it because I started watching it over and over and over again. I'm like, and started noticing different things. Because you first just want to think about how it affected Chris. And then you go back and you see how it affected Chavo. And then how it affected Vicky and everybody.
Right.
It was a terrible situation.
Very much so, man. I mean, again, to this day, people can't. There's really no explanation for, all things considered. Obviously, there's been a lot of research since the time that Chris Benoit passed that, he, succumbed to a lot of different things. But I would say that even now, it's hard to kind of get a grasp of that whole situation. And that whole weekend of what happened. So, we'll never really know.
We'll never really know, but the one thing I feel bad about is Nancy Benoit. She was just as much as part of WCW as Chris or Eddie or Kevin Sullivan. And she's never going to get recognized for what she did just because of her last name.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely one of those things where, all things aside, even as a woman, she probably should be honored for her contributions to the wrestling industry. Like, if you didn't want to go with the name Nancy Benoit,
Nancy Sullivan.
I could totally understand it, but at the same time, the person, the individual, Nancy, woman, a gimmick name, probably should definitely be honored for not only the person who she was, but also for her contribution in the wrestling industry.
And someone else who is way more affected by this than anybody was David Benoit. And I know he's been trying to get into wrestling for a while, and I don't think he's had an official match yet, but he's not allowed at any WWE events because of what his father did. And it's not fair to him because he didn't do anything wrong.
Right. I don't know if that's... I don't know. I mean, is that really...
I'm going off of what he said.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I wish him, obviously, the best, you know what I mean? Like, he has nothing to do with what happened, and I don't know if he is... I believe I've heard that he's been backstage at WWE events
I have
before,
heard that
so I don't
with
know if that's
Natalia.
slightly correct.
I try not to take to heart what every dirt sheet says because I'm stealing this from Simon Gotch, but they don't know as much as the people who were there. So
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Simon Gotch would definitely would know.
He was he's one of my favorite people to watch get interviewed, just because.
Right.
It's not even him as a character; it's him as a person. It's just interesting to watch.
Yeah, good guy.
So, what got me noticing on your career was Colossal Mike Law. You're average height, average size. You look very, average. There's nothing getting you special privileges, and then you throw in the big man gimmick.
Yeah.
That's what got me was you're kind of comical and you're kind of serious. You can do what you need. You can switch back and forth very easily.
Pride myself on that.
That's what I was watching is the Barbie the Barbell.
Oh yeah.
That
You can follow her at Barbie the Barbell on Twitter and Instagram.
I'm pretty sure that's how I got you to follow me, honestly. I feel like it's such a... No one's wanting to do it because they don't want to... I know you can't see this, but quote, bury themselves. But people are too afraid to do that now. They're afraid to have a laugh. And what you do with that character is very interesting.
Yeah, I to me, it's never been, I know what this is, you know what I mean? I know as a guy who's been doing this for a long time that, you have to be versatile in what you do, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, there are times where I think to myself, okay, there are times where I think that sometimes I take it too far in the comedic kind of department, and I never really envisioned myself like that. I envisioned myself, because I always watched guys like Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko when they were in WCW. But then I looked at Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie, I think the hardest part for me is finding that happy medium of being able to do comedy, but also being serious at certain points. And now, there's two guys that I know were great at that, and that was Eddie Guerrero and Chris Candido.
Yes.
Chris Candido, if you watch his stuff from you and back, he was great at being able to be silly in his promos, but then turn around and be serious about it. And that's a guy that I studied, for a long time. You know what I mean? Because there are guys who've done this type of, I guess, gimmick, if you want to say, or persona, that could go strictly do comedy. You know what I mean? I think finding that happy medium of okay, I come out with a big barbell. Yeah, I claim I'm 7 feet tall and 635 pounds or whatever. And it's all to get people to look and see, okay, what is this guy all about, right? You come in there, and then that's when that bell rings, it needs to be business. It needs to be, all right, okay, the ha-has are out of the way, but now it's time for me to go in there and throw down, you know what I mean? Like, it's still a contest. It's still me, not only as a wrestler trying to win a match, but I'm also trying to make sure that everyone remembers that I'm the guy. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be a competition with me and the guy in the ring to make sure that the people know that I'm the guy that they paid money to see, not that other guy, not the other person that's across the the ring from me. It has to be. That's a competitive edge, and that's a competitive nature of what we do, is that we have to be on top of our game to make sure that not only the fans know that I'm the guy that they want to see, but that the promoters know that I'm the guy they need to bring back and pay money to see.
I think in kayfabe-wise, your character fits almost as like a smarting you out, like, because you come out looking, maybe that you're insane because you think you're 7 feet tall and 600 whatever pounds holding the barbell, and then when you get into it, you're a very technical wrestler. You're moving around. You're outsmarting them, outspeeding them, and then they don't know what to do because they think you're just going to try to choke slam them like the Hurricane.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning, that was kind of my mentality, you know what I mean? Like, just go for the haha stuff, but then, ultimately, like, again, it's finding a happy medium, you know what I mean? Like, you can't go in there with, like, a guy like Bruno, for example,
yes.
Meadowlands Monster, who's huge. He's a big human being,
yes.
It could be me going in there, and here the whole idea of Colossal was that I'd never back down from anybody. That's the shoot, though. That was always me as a kid. Like, I always used to get into fights with people bigger than me, but not just like bigger, but like bigger than me, because I was always like, I had a Napoleon complex. So that whole thing is really it's me, but like an extension of who I am, So when you see pictures of me going face to face with a guy like Meadowlands Monster, it's to showcase everybody in my head what I think and who I think I am. You know what I mean? And that's just being like put to the 10th degree when you see me at a wrestling event, And I know full well, I'm not going to be able to go in there and like try to like outpower a guy like Meadowlands Monster. He's legitimately a strong guy, but it's not going to stop me from like facing off with him,
Yeah. Bruno's scary. I'm pretty sure he's actually a security guard, because I don't know where I saw it, but he was doing some kind of event. He was guarding Sting, like legitimately just. I mean,
a man of many trades, I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he gets hired as a hired hand. I don't blame anybody for not. I mean, I would listen if I needed security and I needed somebody to have my back, I would totally hire that guy.
I was about to say, if you had to have a security guard, wouldn't you pick Bruno? That's the first guy I'm picking. I mean, Mr. Grimm looks intimidating, but Bruno, like, is two of Mr. Grimm's.
Yeah, everyone has their look. Listen, at the end of the day, it's not an indication of anything. You know what I mean? Like, that's another thing too. Like, I've never correlated being big or strong as being tough.
No.
You know what I mean? That's not saying, like, Meadowlands Monster is, like, a tough guy. Because I know he's a tough guy. Grimm's a tough guy because I know he's a tough guy.
Yes.
But I've been in the ring with plenty of people who, like, try to, impose their will in the ring on me. Like, try to, like, either bully, back when I was younger or whatever. In the business, they try to bully me or try to come after me or try to take advantage of people in the ring. And, I would fight back, you know what I mean? Because I was taught not to back down from anybody, you know what I mean? I was taught to always fight back. So if that ever happened in the ring, it was because either I let it happen in the moment of what was going on, or I ended up getting back at you. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I will be the first one to say, like, I'll throw down, you know what I mean? I'm not scared to fight anybody, and that's like, I don't go around proclaiming myself to be this, like, badass tough guy, but the fact is, I know that if if it had to go down, that I would throw down, and I would make sure that the person who was on the opposite side of me would regret it.
Yeah, I've always
You know.
I've always been glad that I can outsmart people very well. This is a story I like to tell on the podcast a lot because it really gives you an idea of what it is. Back in middle school, when I was in middle school, there was this short Hispanic kid. Always got picked on, and he didn't think he could do anything about it because he's small, he's really skinny, he's not very good at fighting or anything, And so one day they're
Who is at that age?
yeah, they were picking on him, and the thing that really hit me was they called him a racial slur, and I'm not gonna repeat it because I don't feel comfortable
Probably
with
not
it.
a good idea to ever repeat that. I agree.
Yeah, but if you're curious about what it was, it starts with a B. Go from there. But they called him that, and they were just picking on him. They were pushing around on him, and so I stood up, and this is the part I always love to say: is I drop my shit and walk up to him and say, "Pick on me, motherfucker," because it's the last thing you'll do. There were 6 of them, and I had a plan. Because I was just trying to be intimidating, because I'm the quiet person, and you don't know what you're gonna get with a quiet person. So I stand up to him, and my first plan was if he doesn't back down, I'm throwing this because there was a bench behind me that I was sitting on. I'm throwing this bench at everybody and going one by one. Luckily, it didn't have to go to that.
There you go.
But I didn't have to throw a bench at anybody. But my favorite part of the story is our gym coach. As he's walking down the stairs, he hears me go, "Try it to me, motherfucker. It's the last thing you'll do." And he goes, "I'll be back in 5 minutes."
Right. There you go.
And they have not messed with me or him since that day, and now he's my best friend.
Well, there you go, man. I mean, it's the beauty of the thing. Sometimes, like anything else, man. Like I'm not obviously a purveyor or someone who says that bullying's wrong any which way. You know what I mean? Bullying is something that is wrong. No matter what level or stage of life you're in, you know what I mean? Like, but I will say this: any bully that I've ever come across, I always handled. You know what I mean? Like I fought. And don't get me wrong. Listen, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case for everybody. You know what I mean? Like by no means is that a scenario, and
I don't advise it.
It's just one of those things where we you have to find whatever method to make sure that people have things at home. I don't the level of respect is that here's the thing, like I've always felt like if you respected me, I don't care what who you are, what level level of intelligence, how old you were, sexual orientation, race, I will always be respectful back, man, because that's the way I was taught, and more often than not, I'm just more willing to talk, especially now, dude. I'm an older guy. I'm not looking to throw hands as much anymore.
Yeah.
Out in the streets, in the ring, it's a different thing. Out in the streets, there's a lot of problems that could happen with that sort of thing. But hey, man, kudos to you.
Yeah. I mean, most people aren't. They're not. They're too scared to say something sometimes, and I don't disagree with that because, sometimes it could be your friend that you just don't want to say anything to, and sometimes it could just be, are you going to help anything? Is it going to make it worse? And those are the things that go through my mind sometimes, but I'm like, I really don't give a shit. At certain points, I just really don't care. Because
Right.
there's no way this can make it worse. Because, well, I'm already planning on throwing a bench at them. What could get worse than this? Like, I already had that idea in my mind. But, that's the way I've always felt is if you don't protect these people, and this is why I really like pro wrestling, because the whole object of the story is to... Hang on just a second.
I have to cut you short, man. I just got a call from somebody that I need to really attend to. Is it? I don't know if you want to wrap it up soon. I apologize. I should have given you a heads up ahead of time.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. I think we hit all the topics we really needed to hit anyway.
Awesome, man.
Plug your stuff if you want to.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Plug your stuff if you want to. If you have YouTube or Twitch
hell
or
yeah, man.
Twitter or anything.
Yeah, please follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the Colossal Mike Law. of course. And you can follow my barbell. She has her very own Instagram and Twitter, separate from mine. It's at the Real Barbie, the barbell. You can look up on Instagram and Twitter. My Pro Wrestling Tees store is now open, and as well as my StoreFrontier.com site. StoreFrontier.com has a lot of different options for clothing. So there's Pro Wrestling Tees. Either one is great. I really appreciate everyone who's purchased any merchandise from me recently, and will continue to do so once the events are up and coming. So I appreciate you, Alex, for having me, and once again, thank you for that.
Yeah. And if you want to see his official theme song, go to WrestleWorld 84.
There you go, man. Thank you again for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. Have a great day.
You too, brother.
Alright, if you enjoyed the podcast with Colossal Mike Law, hit the like button and the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, check out WrestleWorld 84. And if you are on Spotify, Apple Music, Anchor, or any other place that you are listening to this podcast, follow it and make sure to keep up to date with any of our podcasts.
Motivated, moving ahead and you know that they mad. Why they hating, wishing they